All right. Hello. Hey, how are you doing today? Hey, friends, my name is Dr. Anna Durbin, and welcome to Teacher Talk Tuesday. I was just checking here on my phone to make certain that we're posting live on my Facebook page, Blue Ribbon Teacher. So if you're not a subscriber, go ahead and click that like and follow button too, so that you can stay updated on what's going on in the world of education. So let me double check that. And I think we should be good to go. Yep, it looks like we're live. All right, perfect. Okay, great. So, how are you doing? Happy New Year. It is such an exciting time to start a new semester and to start fresh. You know, a couple days ago, I shared some tips on what you can do to start your students back into the routine. Today was my second day back into the classroom or at school because we had our break where we went all the way through until the 23rd of December, and then we were able to have our Christmas and then our New Year's, and we had that week off there from January 2nd through the 6th, I think it was. So anyways, yeah. So it was so great to get back into the classroom and to see the kids. They were very, very excited to be back at school. And in my position, I get to go around and see the kids in an entire school, actually 2 schools that I work in. And I provide support for some teachers in the classroom working with English language learners. So yeah, exciting times. So beginning a new year, a new semester, we have new goals that we're working towards. One of my goals is to what I was working on over the holiday break was this professional learning series that I'm bringing to you today, part 1. This is actually a 4-part series where we'll be able to talk about writing and those students who struggle with writing and what we can do as teachers to help them overcome their struggles. I'm also working on another course. This is kind of like a foundational course that's focusing on everything that, as a teacher, what you can do to instill great writing routines and procedures and opportunities for students to write, and then to basically take a student who doesn't like to write to I love to write, and they go home and they write. So if that's something that excites you, be on the lookout in a few more weeks for that announcement to come out. All right, let me check here. I just lost it. There it is. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. If you hop on today, make certain that you leave a comment or let us know where you're tuning in from. Okay, so let's get started. Do you have students who struggle with writing? Perhaps it's content, style, form, or process, mechanics, or characteristics of that great writing. Maybe they complain or argue or they have a sour attitude. You know what I'm talking about writing, and they don't turn any writing in or very little assignments. So how about when you walk over to check on their progress and they say, I don't know what to write about. I have nothing to write about. And they put their head down. You know what I'm talking about, right? They do this all the time. So do you have students like this every single year? There's always a few students in my group whenever I was in a classroom who they would come in and they were just like, I am not writing, you cannot make me write. Well, perhaps you struggle to find that secret sauce to help your 25 plus diverse learners be successful writers because they all have different needs. Can you relate to that? You know what I'm talking about. If you've been in a classroom for a year or homeschooled your students for a little while. So, you know, over my 30 years in education, I have had the opportunity to work with more than 1,000 students to develop not only their writing skills, but to further develop their writing strategy, and most importantly, a joy in writing. So writer's block essentially became extinct after about 6 to 8 weeks in my classroom. So today I'm going to be sharing some valuable tips and strategies to assist teachers in public, private, and homeschool classrooms to support your writers in overcoming writer's block and to be successful writers. All right. So our topic for today, as you can see, is going to be focusing on writing. Today's session is the first of 4 sessions discussing writer's block and how to overcome this challenge. The next 3 sessions will be held at the same place, same time, each Tuesday this month. And I'm going to share what I have learned from my research and practice that is successful in getting students to not only write, but become avid writers. That's right. No more tears, no blank pages, no sour attitudes. Are you with me? All right, let's go ahead and get started. All righty, so during this session, I'd love to hear a few things from you. Where are you tuning in from? So if you can go ahead and share in the comments where you're viewing this video or this live stream from, and tell us what is one challenge that you have teaching writing, or even a question about writing. So I'll be certain to address any challenges and questions live tonight, and afterwards, if I don't get a chance to discuss it tonight, I will definitely answer in the comments, or I will definitely bring it up at our next session that we have next week. So if you're catching this training session on the replay, please comment #replay and share your responses. Ask those questions in the chat box. And again, I will make certain to come back, answer questions, and or we'll discuss those questions next week. Also, if you could do me a sweet favor, I'd really appreciate it. If you could please click those like and heart buttons that you have. So when you do this, it really helps others receive notifications, and it spreads the word about the content that we're learning tonight. How many other educators do you know that have students that struggle with writing? So what we can do is to help each other by sharing. Also, I invite you to tag your friends, share this video, and like my Facebook page, Blue Ribbon Teacher. Now, if you're viewing this on YouTube, go ahead and click the like and subscribe buttons and leave comments there too. So regardless of the viewing platform, whether it's Facebook or YouTube, remember to turn on notifications so that you do not miss out on any future information and the fun that we have. All right. So let me go ahead and check here on my phone to see if we have any people coming in. We don't have anyone coming in, but one thing that I know is that not everybody can attend the time that I set up. So for me, it's 4:30. I get out of school at 4 o'clock, and so I hustle home and get everything ready to go. So I want it to be so it's not so late and on the East Coast, and I know they're in Hawaii, they're still probably in school still. So if you are catch this on a replay, just #replay, and we'll make certain that any questions that you have, we get those answered too. All right, thank you so much for that. So one more thing before we get started, before you watch this on the replay, go ahead and take a moment to eliminate any distractions. Writing is such a powerful tool for everyone, and it is important that our students are proficient writers. So I have a lot of great strategies that I'm going to share with you today to improve your literacy instruction, some real very specific strategies that you can implement tomorrow into your lessons. So in this professional learning series, this is going to be that perfect place to start your journey towards being an amazing writing teacher who supports each student's writing. And that's each student's, that student apostrophe S. So really to personalize that writing. All right, so grab your favorite beverage and come on in. Welcome, welcome. I'm so excited that you're here. All right, so today is the first session of a 4-part professional learning series. I'd like to share the success criteria for each session. Okay, so for the first session, why students experience writer's block, initial strategies to support writers. That's what we're going to focus on today. Okay, we're going to talk about why they experience writer's block, and I'll share, goodness, at least 6, if not 8 or 10 strategies that you can actually implement into your classroom to support those writers, and you'll get those today. So stay tuned throughout the entire session. The next session that we're going to have next week, we're going to focus on on learning from the experts with model text to unlock writer's block. Who better to learn from than those experts that we have? All right, I'm looking at my notes over here and moving my slides. So the next thing on the following Tuesday, we're going to focus on differentiating with the multiple intelligences to unlock writer's block. We know that not all students learn the same way, and as instructors, as educators, what we do is we meet the students where they are, and we provide alternative and numerous ways for them to grasp the content, to share their learning, and to assess. All right, and finally, On the last learning session, which will be the following Tuesday, we're going to be priming the brain for writing and take a look at some next steps for those writers. All right, so we've got 4 great learning sessions jam-packed with great information, and I hope that you are able to attend. And again, if not, simply watch the replay and hashtag replay so I know that you're there, okay? So you may be wondering, who am I? My name is Dr. Annette Durbin. Personally, I'm a wife, mom, grandma, sister, friend, and colleague. I enjoy family and travel outdoors. We live in Alaska, right? Craft, music, and game nights. Lots and lots of fun things that I enjoy doing. However, professionally, I am a longtime educator. I have 30 plus years experience in early childhood and elementary education, and I am still passionate about education. Now, 27 of those years, I worked in the classroom, all grades, preschool through 6th grade. And then about 3 years ago, I moved into my current position as an English language instructional specialist, where I work with students who are learning the English language as well as providing resources, and I provide mentorship for the teachers, instructional strategies to help them in their classroom. We get to do some team teaching. So it's definitely different than when I was in the classroom, but it's definitely a lot of fun. So also since 2005, I have been a national board certified teacher, and I continue mentoring teachers who are also working towards their board certification. I have a master's degree in educational leadership, a K-12 principal certificate, and a doctorate degree. Now, my doctorate degree focuses on administrative leadership, specializing in teaching and learning, which really speaks to the practitioner educator that I am at heart. So besides doing the College of Education adjunct work for 2 universities, I am also an Alaska State Writing Consortium teacher consultant, where I've been providing literacy professional development since 2006 for teachers in my district and around my state. I'm an Alaska State mentor, and I began a mentorship program in my district. About 3 years ago, I wrote an NEA grant, and we were funded for 3 years to develop a mentorship program to support early career educators. Additionally, I am an education consultant working with public, private, and homeschool educators, helping them to achieve their professional goals and overcome instructional and behavioral challenges in their classroom. And finally, I am also a digital course and resource creator, focusing on elementary education content, which is certainly what brings us together here tonight. All right, so as you can see, I love education, and helping teachers be blue ribbon teachers is honestly my passion. So this work really gets me excited every single day. So that's a little bit about me. And now if you'd like to learn more about my work, I'd like to invite you to head over to my website, blueribbonteacher.com, and you can see there at the bottom of the slide the address. Check out some free resources that I have on the site, read a blog post or 2, and share your comments that are related to that blog post. I'd love to hear from you. All right, so anybody on live, go ahead and let me know where you're feeling. Are you ready for some more? A little bit about me and also about the work that I do and what we're going to be doing tonight. And again, just a reminder, type those questions inside the chat box, and we will make certain that we get back to you. All right. All right, let's go ahead and move on. So for today's Teacher Talk Tuesday, we're going to focus on session 1 and our big question: why students experience writer's block and initial strategies to support writers. So by the end of this session, you will have at least 6 strategies, and when I think about all of them, there's probably closer to 10, that you can use to support those students in your classroom between now and the time that we meet again next week. All right, so you have a little bit of homework, right? Not really assigned, but definitely some strategies that you can implement right away. All right, so one reason that writing is challenging is because, you can flip it right there, is because the students are not certain of the process of doing the writing. Now, I want you to think about that. Think about when your students or children were younger. They would pick up a crayon or pick up a pencil and they'd start writing something. They did this because they saw other siblings and adults do the exact same thing. Then the children began to draw some lines and circles, and we equate that to scribbling, but to the child, there was some specific meaning. They had something to say, something that he or she wrote, and they could always tell you about what it said. So the work that the child did was celebrated, yay, and success was, the child received that success, and we placed that work on the refrigerator. You know what I mean? Soon, anytime the child wrote something down, he or she received more praise, yay. And the child is beginning to communicate in writing, feeling great with the reactions, and does more writing. Then the child enters school. Now the child learns there is a certain way to write. There are lines to write on. There are letters to form. Then those letters turn into words to write, and that's what communicates thoughts. And then how do we spell all those words? And now the child isn't having fun writing. His or her work is being corrected. He or she has to redo the work. Not a happy picture. Here come the tears, ripped up papers, holes from the erasers, etc. You know what I'm talking about. Surely you've seen this not only in early childhood education, but elementary education. And since I've worked with 5th and 6th graders, I've even seen this in middle schoolers, where they crumple up their paper and they toss it into the garbage can, or practice basketball skills, which is way more fun. So my question is, why do students exhibit these behaviors? You know, the students are thinking, now I need to write something different. How do I do this? It made sense before. Why not now? People were happy with what I wrote before. Why not now? I'm writing a story, and what I have written is exactly what I want to say. Why do I need to rewrite it? Why? What does the teacher expect me to do? I hate writing. So let me tell you about a story. This actually was me as a kid. You know, I always wrote what I thought that the teacher wanted me to write, and I always had errors. I didn't know how to take my own thoughts and get them down perfectly, because it always seemed as though I had to fix something, whether it was content, organization, or mechanics, right? I had this teacher product, and I was supposed to mimic that. Well, fast forward to my English 101 college experience. I remember the first paper that I wrote about a pencil talking to paper, right? And I would just draw. And I started out, I just had the little loops, right? I just did some little nice, pretty scribbles, right? And I talked about how the pencil was talking to the paper and didn't know what to write. I really struggled writing this piece. And honestly, it was exactly where I was at, my thinking. You know, I did the best that I could, and I received some comments from my professor. And her tip was this: write how you speak. I was like, what? That's it? Okay. So I did. And then I was more successful. And you know what? That tip worked for me, and it later worked for my own students. I never forgot how it helped me. And then it also helped my students, especially those who struggled to write. When I let my students know they can just write down their thoughts and forget about everything else, there's no red pen, right? My students' writing improved. Yes, what they turned in wasn't perfect, but it was accepted. And I used this writing piece as a baseline, and I pulled writing lessons from their work that I would go over later. But now my students were less stressed about writing. They could write down whatever they thought, and they felt better, because you know what? Now was probably the first time that they had an assignment turned in for writing. It was complete, and they felt success. So strategy, write this down. So my quick strategy to overcome this challenge: let them write. Just getting thoughts on paper is the biggest hurdle for struggling writers. It doesn't have to be perfect. Take what they have written and put it on the refrigerator. Help them to feel proud about what has been written. Now remember, if there is nothing available for you to read, how will you know how to support the students developing writing skills? Let them write. Okay, let's move on to the next challenge. So another reason writers struggle is the writer doesn't always know where to begin or how to proceed. They have some thoughts in their brain, but they're not quite certain how they're supposed to get those thoughts on paper. I can orally share my thoughts, But whenever I have to transfer those thoughts to paper, that's more challenging. So here's a strategy. Write this down. This is number 2, right? All right, another strategy. To help those students start writing, engage them in oral sharing. When we write, we typically do a pre-write. Or if you're like me, I draft a letter or email in my mind before I write. And you know what? I may even bounce some ideas around with my friends. So how many of you can raise your hand to the strategy, right? You do your writing in your brain first before you actually write it down. Or put a 2 in that chat box if you use this strategy when you write. And if you're watching on replay, put a 2 in that chat box if this is you use this strategy. Students need this same time to process their thoughts, just like adults do, and to think about how to start sharing those thoughts. So use this oral sharing strategy to support your students. I have found that students who struggle with writing have less frustration when they've had an opportunity to first talk to a friend about their writing. Think about your English language learners. They need time to process the question or the topic. Have a go at communicating their thoughts orally with their friends. Perhaps they can jot some notes down, and then they are ready to articulate the information. Now, here's a little side note. So if you have a student who's an English language learner and they're a monolingual student, then let the student write their thoughts in their first language. Google Translator, you can use Google Translator on your phone. It's been a lifesaver. I've got teachers at both of the schools that I work at this year. They use Google Translate, and we have some students who are, monolingual from Ukraine and Russia, and they are able to type on the computer, and then we can simply translate that. Now, this is one way. The goal is for them to be able to write and to read and to do everything in English, right? But this lets them know that they can also be successful. So you know what? Also, a caveat with this oral sharing, I have found the writing that students create is more organized and it holds better content. Why? Because they've had a chance to talk about their thinking. All right. So I hope that you can see these challenges students struggle with. They are easily supported with a few quick strategies that I've shared and a quick little monolingual tip in there. Okay, so let's move on to our next slide. So let's look at another reason that students struggle with writing. Writing doesn't take place all at once in fluid sentences and organized paragraphs. What? You mean writing takes more than 15 minutes? Yes. This challenge comes as students begin writing their pieces, and now they are making corrections because that's what we do as teachers. We help students identify errors and fix them, and that's called learning, right? So here's a strategy. An effective strategy for students to use is an analogy. Usually, think about tying their shoes. Can you learn how to tie your shoes the first time? No, it takes practice. How about a sports-related skill? Did you make that shoot the basket and get it in the first time, or did you get that touchdown the first time? No. So think about the students, that you're working with. What is something that you can help that student identify with, so that way they can see that, writing just is simply practice. Doing math is practice. Reading is practice. If we want to be successful at anything, we have to practice. Driving a car, that's why you get a permit, so that you can practice, okay? So use these analogies. You know your students, so connect with him or her on the analogy, the example, and help the student to see that anything worth doing is worth practicing, even writing. All right, another great strategy for this specific challenge is to start small. Instead of the student revising the entire writing piece for all errors, focus just on one paragraph and one error type. Let the student use highlighters to locate the errors and colored pencils to make corrections. Why not make it fun? Perhaps the student has an artistic multiple intelligence, right? An artistic intelligence that is drawn to color, okay? Instead of rewriting the entire piece, then have the student just submit that one paragraph, okay? Now, like most teachers, I always like to give a student a good challenge. And you know what? Students like as a matter of fact, they love challenges. So I will challenge the student to rework another paragraph and make the same error corrections or even correct a different type of error, depending upon where that student is, right? And as far as willingness to do this extra task challenge. I will only include, when I do this, I will only include one error type, content, style, form, one mechanics error, error to correct at any time. If you do too much, then the students become overwhelmed. All right, so this way the students are practicing their learning, that are not feeling overwhelmed, and they're more apt to complete the assignment successfully and feel accomplished. And that is key, that feeling of success. Okay? All right, let's move on. So I hope that you're writing these down. We've had lots of great strategies tonight. All right, so reason number 4. We are coming down to this last big challenge for students, right? And the more complex the subject or the topic, the more unpredictable the journey. So which student are you thinking about right now that looks at a large project and begins to hyperventilate? How much time do I have? What time does recess start? I don't know what times, how much time do I have till the end of the school day? I don't know what to write about or where to start. I'm never going to get this done. And the negativity goes on and on and on. And you know what? Those negative thoughts, they lead to negative action. So what does the student do? The student sits there in frustration, not knowing how to start or what to do. Sound familiar? Yes. The student probably feels like he or she is in writer's jail. Knowing that the student has this struggle, it's important to plan ahead. Additionally, oftentimes, what I have found is that students think that what they write down on paper is perfect the first time. Yeah, this goes back to the students' early days of writing, right? Everything was perfect, boom, on the refrigerator. So those strategies to overcome some challenges that I shared earlier so far in our lesson today will certainly prepare the student for a longer, more complex piece of writing. Now, if you look at the different challenges that students have, we've gone from, beginning to now beginning challenges of even just, not certain what to do because of their past experiences and how they are, the expectations they have, to writing this complex piece. At this stage, the student just struggles with writing so much information. Once students get to the complex piece of writing, they become overwhelmed with so much to write. Do you see how these struggles build up on each other and how the strategies are built to give confidence first, then bring in that learning? Remember that. Confidence first, and then learning can happen. We all had some brain science, right? Remember that? We don't want students in the STEM. We want the students in the frontal lobe, right? STEM is fight or flight, right? Those frustrations, I'm not going to do anything, you can't learn. And then when the students are calm, they're in that frontal lobe. And that's when the students are able to learn. So keep the students in their frontal lobe, keep them calm, help them to feel successful, baby steps, build that confidence, and then learning can happen. All right, so a strategy. The strategy to support the student with this challenge builds upon all those earlier strategies we've talked about. Breaking down the task into small bite-sized pieces and mapping out a plan is not only a great strategy for writing, but also completing larger projects. Perhaps a graphic organizer or a timeline can be a strategy that your student can use. Now I want you to think about those projects that you have to complete. How many of you have a checklist? I know I am a checklist person, and I love marking those check boxes. Check, check. I will often add a task that was not on the list and check that task off. How many of you do that too? I know you're out there. So providing a visual will assist the student in completing a larger task. This helps the student see the big picture and the path to get there to that goal line, which equates to success, which equates to happiness, frontal lobe, accomplishments. Okay, you see? See how all this works? All right, so when we look at all of these challenges, we know that most students, they will experience these challenges, but we also know that not every single student is the exact same. So, which is why teaching writing is such a challenge for teachers. Okay, you have 25 students, you have 25 different challenges. All right, so here's a huge tip. When it comes to a writer's struggle, if you can find out what that exact struggle is for that student, what is causing him or her that negative experience, maybe something from his or her past, that's something that happened last week, something that happened when they were little, figuring that out, that's going to be your ticket for instructional success. Knowing the specific challenge allows you the opportunity to prepare with an alternative route for that student. This all comes from knowing your students and building a relationship. All right, so here we go. What are some other challenges that you can add to this list? Go ahead and type those in the comments. Perhaps you have some strategies that will help other teachers as well. Share those in the comments also. We'd really appreciate, sharing is caring, and we love to help each other out. So what are some other challenges? Maybe I can help you address those challenges. Maybe some other teachers might have an idea. And what are some other strategies that you have used to be successful? All right, so again, checking in here. So are you ready for more? Is everything making sense? This first part, we really focused on that student and the struggles that they're having. I'm going to check check really quick here. Okay, it looks like we're still doing well. All right, so again, any questions, just jot those in the box. Okay, so let's move on. All right, so we've focused on the students so far. Have you ever thought that maybe the challenge for the student doesn't have a whole lot to do with the student, but maybe the teacher has challenges? Teachers literally face hundreds of challenges every day and are thinking of how to overcome those challenges every single minute. I remember a training that shared a while back that, teachers, they make over 300 decisions in a 10-minute period. I was like, wow, 300 decisions. How can they even think about with the content that they're teaching, right? I don't know how that ratio came about, but I honestly believe it. It's very challenging. Lots of stuff is going on in the brain when we teach. So why is teaching writing challenging for teachers? Let's take a look. Besides the number of students in a classroom, a doctor doesn't see as many patients a day that a teacher sees in a day, right? Students have varying strengths and weaknesses. Thinking about the numerous writing elements and the connections to reading, listening, and speaking, there are thousands of decisions that need to be made to support students along their literacy journey. Teachers are concerned. How am I supposed to meet the needs of all these students? Whether I'm homeschooling and I have 4 students in front of me, all at different grade levels, how am I supposed to do writing with each of them? Because it's going to take all day to do individual lessons. That is a big challenge for homeschooling parents as well as classroom teachers. Another challenge teachers have in the classroom, diverse learners. In homeschool, you have diverse learners, right? The diverse learners, they need to recognize, let me say that again. The teachers have diverse learner needs that the teacher needs to recognize. Think academic, cultural, behavior, social, and the teacher needs to address or support those needs that the students have to meet varied instructional needs, okay? How am I supposed to, as a teacher, meet the needs of every student if I'm teaching a class of 25 students, 35 students who have different strengths, different weaknesses, and writing across genres with a different focus, different audience? How am I supposed to teach each of these students and do this effectively? I can't do this with 25 lessons, right? I don't know about you, but my undergrad, it had a language class, but we really didn't focus on how to effectively teach those students writing, right? When we did our student teaching, I don't know if you remember your student teaching, but you did the best that you could. You gained so much information, but you know what? Where did the real learning take place? Once you're in the classroom, and it was you and those 50 eyeballs looking at you, and you were in your own closed classroom. So there's so much that teachers struggle with that make it difficult, all right, to teach. So, all right, so let me go on to the next slide. That's all I want to say on that one. So additionally, students have their own strengths and weaknesses and the ways of learning that need to be addressed. We mentioned multiple intelligences earlier. All right, how are we supposed to meet every single student's need? Not to mention some students are new to America, right? Perhaps they have different languages that they speak and varied languages of language proficiencies. And I've got to say, something that I've noticed in my current position working with several schools and preschool to fifth grade teachers, besides the immigrants, more and more students are coming to our classrooms with language deficiencies. And these students grew up in the neighborhood. And I don't have any like hard cold facts about it or anything, but I know that little kids, they have more technology in their hands, you know. So how many of you have seen a toddler with a phone and they're playing with it, or an iPad? And you know, our parents, I mean, my husband and I went to our youngest son, we went out to a restaurant last week, and there was another table that had a mom, dad, and a child, and mom and dad were on their phone, and the child was just sitting there. And I'm like, where is that conversation? You know, I remember we would always have conversations around the dinner table with our kids. Our kids are all grown now, so it's different, you know, but anyways, there's more and more language deficiencies that these students are coming to school with, that teachers need to have strategies to support those students, not just the English learners, but just students who do speak English. Okay, so there's lots of challenges. You know, besides the school and classroom environmental challenges that teachers face, there may also be personal challenges. For example, a teacher's own self-doubt, their own experiences in his or her writing abilities or instructional abilities. You know, I didn't have a lot of writing instruction in my undergrad, and I had to take the opportunities to go and seek out that writing instruction as an early classroom teacher. And then also I have like so many books. It's insane how many books I have about teaching writing. But literacy is something that I love, so it's all good. My husband doesn't really mind. I don't think. So, you know, but as you can see, the challenges that teachers face in and outside of the classroom are numerous. Whether it's, you know, the environment, whether it's our own personal, then you have, you know, a variety of students. So, you know, what are some other challenges that you can add to this? Go ahead and add those in the comments. And if you have some other, you know, ways to overcome some of these strategies, include those in the comments as well for others to read. Okay. All right. So let's take a look here. I'm just looking at my phone here. All right. I don't see, I have a little side window on my computer. I don't see any comments in there. I think the comments should show up there. Okay, so, you know, go ahead and take some time and do that. And if you're watching this on the replay, you know, I would love for you to include those comments and those questions, this strategy sharing in the chat box as well. As people watch this, you know, a month from now, 2 months from now, next week, tomorrow, whatever, then they're going to also see that information. Okay, so go ahead and make certain that you do include that information in there. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and scoot on, but we've had enough doom and gloom, right? Enough talk about challenges. So let's look at some additional strategies to overcome these challenges, specifically the ones that we were talking about last from the teacher's context part of it. The first part, we focused on the students and some strategies to help those students. And then the second part of our session is focusing on those students or the teachers. And I just happened to look at the time. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going way longer than what I anticipated. So I'll try and maybe go a little bit quicker here. So a few proactive strategies that teachers can do is to provide frequent practice. I want you to think about your own writing program. How often do the students write? For what purpose are they writing? Are there opportunities for peer-to-peer discussion, teacher feedback, sharing within and outside of the classroom? And what about using pictures to elicit more writing? So these are all very effective strategies to support student writing. You know, in this book here that I love to read, this is from the National Writing Project, nwp.org. I was reading some of the research in here, and I was shocked when it talked about how when a student is in the classroom during the day, they only have about 15% of their entire day where they actually are engaged in writing their thoughts down. Okay, 15% is not a lot of time. So How are you providing opportunities for your students to write during the day? All right, I want you to read this here. This also comes from that same book. Teachers not only need to have students write more, they must also give students a rich and diverse array of writing experiences. And I think this really talks right into writing across the curriculum. And also, in the elementary teachers are great at providing opportunities to write in science, to write in social studies, and to write in math. And even in the book, it even discusses where middle school and high school teachers, it's not just the job of the English teacher to teach the students how to write, but it's the job of all teachers, all those content teachers, to make certain that they include those writing opportunities and reading opportunities to examine that text. And if you're a middle or high school teacher watching this, and if you're not for certain on how to provide those opportunities for your students, reach out to those high school teachers. That high school English teacher would be honored to help you and provide some ideas to support. Okay. So, you know what? Another proactive strategy is simply an I notice statement. Whenever you take the opportunity to notice something about someone else, it makes them feel great. So if you make an I notice statement to those struggling writers, or any student really throughout the day, even those students who have behavioral challenges, I notice statements are great. Focus on other things that student is doing. Okay, so you don't want to specifically focus on writing. Okay, so if the student is playing nicely, Sarah, I love how you're playing nicely with James or whatever. You're sharing the game. You're taking turns. Great job. If you see a student who is making a list, right, or they might be writing something little about maybe they're writing a note to their friend, right? That is a purposeful writing piece. That's an example of purposeful writing outside of the writing that we'd be working with the kids to do, right? So I noticed that you're using your writing skills. Great job. You don't really want to associate it with the writing, but if they're making a list, that you could do something like that. Is the student reading quietly? The student's sitting there. I notice how you're sitting there reading quietly. What is your book about? And talk about that. Maybe the student has a special dress or a special hat. So, when you engage in conversations that are important to the student, that's not necessarily focused on writing or any subject, right? That means so much to the student. So get to know the student and develop a relationship. I can't tell you how important that is. When you get to know your students and you develop a relationship, they will really go that extra mile for you. These are very important pieces to support struggling writers and overcome any writing challenges that they have. Okay? Huge tip on that one. All right, so, and here, again from that book, Because Writing Matters, when the student believes the caring adult, which is a teacher, parent, whoever it might be, knows without a doubt the student can be successful, the student gains confidence in self. Okay, have you ever heard of that quote, my teacher thought I was smart, and so I was, right? You have the power, as a teacher, you have the power to make or break a student's day, their attitude, and their spirit. So think about what words that you can use to support that student, to help raise and lift up that student, empower the student. Okay. All right. So one little final check here. Again, let me know in those comments how you're doing, and thinking about all the strategies that I've shared. Strategies that teachers have control over the classroom and supporting those students. Like I said, I know there's at least 6, probably closer to 10 strategies if I go back and count them all. But anyways, use these strategies alongside all of the strategies that I shared earlier, and your struggling writer will begin to be a successful writer. I honestly, I want to say I can guarantee it. It's like, honestly, 100%. Every single year, it has literally worked for me. And I teach in Title I classrooms, very, very challenging students who cross their arms and they don't want to write at all, crying, the whole 9 yards. But literally after about a 6 to 8 week period, they are loving writing. And again, it's to build up that student for success. Okay, so let's recap. Let's recap our success criteria, our strategies, and teacher control. Okay, so today our focus was to talk about why students experience writer's block and to share some initial strategies to support writers. And I hope that these strategies you will be able to implement into your classroom or with your students at home, wherever they might be, to support the work that the student is doing and that their work is essentially learning. Okay. Again, we were focusing on the teacher aspect. You know, what are some things that some challenges that the teacher has and what the teacher can do to help overcome those challenges in the classroom. Okay, so lots of great information. So friends, this is going to wrap up our session for today. Please let me know how these strategies are helping you with your struggling writers. Also, let me know if you tried a strategy and you didn't experience success. Remember, it's not going to happen on day one. It has to be consistent, and that key word I said is consistent. I'd love to hear about your success. If you have any additional questions or even some more ideas for more training, please tag me in your social media posts and email me anytime, and I love, love, love hearing from you. So join me next Tuesday, same bat time, same bat channel for session 2. And we're going to focus on learning from the experts with model texts to unlock writer's block. Now, I haven't used my phone as a camera, so I'm going to attempt to do that next week. We'll see how that goes. Hopefully it goes well. All right, so remember to follow me on social media, visit my website for some free resources, some more tips and inspiration. And if you would like to also access my weekly newsletter where I share lots of information, tips, resources for you, then feel free to do that. I don't spam, but I do send out a newsletter once a week. So if you'd like to do that, then feel free to sign up for that as well. All right, so thank you. Thank you for stopping by. That's going to wrap up our session for today. I appreciate your patience and participating in this training. And again, if you're watching it on the replay, comment #replay. Also place those questions, those comments that you have, and I will make certain to get back to you on that either in the chat box or on the next session that we have next week. So my question for you, did you find this professional learning series valuable? If you did, I know and you know that there are other people out there who would like to know about this too. So I would be honored if you would share and invite them to learn more about this resource. You know, the biggest compliment that you can give me is sharing, making certain that other teachers have this information so that they can work with their students. Okay. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. I look forward to seeing you next week, same time, 5:30 Pacific Standard Time. Alaska be 4:30. East Coast is 8:30. So yeah, I look forward to seeing you next week, and just have a blessed day. All right, take care. Bye, friends.